Okay, this is going to be a brief PowerPoint that goes over the graduate school application process at West Virginia University. So after this, we hope that you'll understand what the requirements are for applying to the WVU Speech Language Pathology program. Know when you need to have specific tasks completed, have a better understanding of your reviewer's perspective, and some specific information for the WVU application. So things that you should be doing right now is taking into consideration what you want in your graduate school experience, because it's really important that you find a program that matches where you see yourself working, providing you the clinical experiences that you would like, as well as including the academic coursework that's going to be presented in a way that fits your learning style. So just some considerations that you might want to think about as you go through your review process is the size of the program. You're going to see a large variety of programs, some classes as small as 15, and then typically a graduate school class size is going to be 25 to 35, but can be anywhere up to 50 or 60 depending on the size of the graduate school program. Where the program is placed, this will impact the types of clinical experiences you're able to get before your externship placement. So think about whether or not you want a rural experience or more of a urban experience versus just kind of a suburban type of an experience, because that will impact the types of clinical experiences that you get. And that's kind of the other thing, we keep talking about clinic, but there are other experiences that you get during graduate school, such as interprofessional education and programming. And those are activities that are done with other students that are studying to be physical therapists or occupational therapists or pharmacists, or, a variety of healthcare professions or education professions with whom we end up working with once we're done. So these are people that you may want to have experiences with before you get to the workplace, so that you have a better understanding of what they have to offer your clients. And then, of course, you always want to look at cost. So this is a consideration. I do purposely put this last because I do think that although it is an extremely important consideration, you don't want to select your graduate school program solely based upon cost. So ways that you can go about finding out about other programs is the ASHA EdFind link, where you can look at different states, you can look at different sizes. There's all kinds of ways to sort through and find out, online versus on campus. These are things that you'll want to go in and explore as you put together your list of programs that you might want to apply to. Make sure that you pay attention to their application requirements, so that you know what you need to do for each of these. And then we strongly recommend for our own students that they create a schedule of due dates for the programs, just to try and help keep everything organized, so that you don't miss a deadline. WVU and many schools do their application process through SIDCAS. So they do have a help center. I would strongly recommend you reach out to them first if you start to have a problem as an applicant. Although we run our program application process through SIDCAS, we are not trained to answer your questions the way that Liaison is for you, the student. So our perspective is solely as program providers and putting information into the system. We don't have a lot of experience. There are some things that we've done through the process of trying to see what it looks like from your side, but really the best information that you're going to get about your applications and how to do them is going to come straight from Liaison. So I strongly recommend you go to their help center if you have any problems. Things that you do need to understand are related to deadline requirements. And so a lot of the programs are going to have identified themselves as blue, orange, green, white. All of that gets very confusing, but what I want you to understand is that these color codes tell you a lot about when you need to have your materials in. And whether or not things have to be what we call verified. And that just means that you need to have things in even sooner so that, Liaison goes through and double checks that all your grades from your undergraduate program have been entered correctly so that your GPAs have been calculated correctly. And so these different colored codes tell you when things must be either submitted by or actually verified. So blue means that you have to have things in, but they don't have on that specific deadline date. Orange refers to application payments and transcripts received by midnight of the deadline date. And green, which is what WVUs is, means that things have to be verified. And so therefore, Liaison recommends that you actually have all your materials in at least 4 weeks before the actual deadline. So our deadline is February 1st. So they would recommend that you have all of your materials submitted by January 1st so that you can be sure that your application is verified by the February 1st deadline. So again, for all of your schools, you'll want to pay attention to that, but our deadline is February 1st. And that kind of brings us to the whole submitting of transcripts. Please know that you do need to submit to CIDCAS original transcripts from every institution that you attended. Even if you did dual credit in high school, you will need to contact the institution that did the dual credit and have them submit a transcript to CIDCAS. Depending on your program and where you're applying, you may need to wait until your fall semester grades are posted for your current institution. WVU does want to see your fall grades, so you will want to wait and request that until after those fall semester grades have been posted, and then it will be sent directly to CIDCAS at that time. A lot of schools will ask you for recommendations. Please pay attention to whether or not they specify how many academic or professional or personal recommendations they would like. And so I'm going to kind of go through what that means so that you're sure to request recommendation letters / evaluations from the right people. So when an institution asks for an academic recommendation, they want to have someone who works in higher ed. So it doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's in your major or communication sciences and disorders, but it should be an instructor at the university. So if you're a psychology major, you may have a great relationship with a psychology professor that would fall as an academic reference. And it can also include graduate students if they've been your primary instructor, or it may include a clinical supervisor if you did an undergraduate clinic. So again, any of those would fall as that academic reference. A professional reference would be somebody with whom you've worked for. So this might be a supervisor, it might be a fellow employee. They would be considered professional, especially if they've been your supervisor and they can attest to your communication and collaboration and work ethic and those types of attributes. And then we have our personal reference. A lot of times those may be someone with whom you babysat. But again, what we really want your references to do is talk about your ability to be successful in graduate school. So remember that for us as reviewers, we want to know that you're going to have the ability to balance academic and clinical work as well as possibly a job. So we do talk with our own students about being very careful about obtaining personal references. These don't tend to be as strong a reference for being to talk about your ability to be successful in graduate school and you having the attributes that will make you successful. So when we come to your personal statement, WVU does require a personal statement, and a lot of places do. I would highly encourage you to think about why you will be a successful speech language pathologist. And although many of you have come to the profession wanting to help people, or because you've had a personal experience with someone with a communication disorder, I would encourage you to broaden that perspective, because in talking with many of your classmates, you will find that a lot of them have had a similar experience in wanting to be a speech language pathologist as a result of a personal experience with a family member who's had autism, or a grandparent that's had a stroke, or someone else in the family. So this isn't going to be something that sets you apart from your peers. And really your goal for your personal statement is to have you explain how you're not only going to be successful in graduate school, but you're going to be a successful professional as a speech language pathologist. So you want to talk about things that will differentiate you from your peers so that your application is memorable. So really take some time to think about, the things that will have an impact in your professional experience later. And this can be communication skills, your ability to work with others, because we do so much interprofessionally, your ability to integrate research into practice independently. If you've had any experience in a research lab, that will be of benefit as you go into this clinical application piece of taking research into real life activities. So again, really think about, the things that make you different from your peers and why you're going to be a great professional. And so again, I kind of talked through all of those. Just be careful about making sure that your personal statement doesn't sound like everybody else's. So the basics for WVU's application, our deadline is February 1st for a verified application. And for those of you that will be requesting recommendations from faculty at WVU, the materials to do that are located online. So if you go to the homepage for undergraduate programs, there's a link right here to all of the forms that you need at WVU when you're in our program. And if you click on that link, it takes you to a Google Drive folder, and you'll see that there are folders for each program. So you're going to want to select the undergraduate in communication sciences and disorders. And when that opens up, you'll see the seniors guidelines for requesting a recommendation, the seniors request for recommendation form, and then if you would like to provide your reference writers the template, they can access it here, or you can attach it to an email so that they have it. So again, read through these instructions carefully so that you're able to do this. I believe you have until November 8th, and you can start October 14th to request recommendations. It's always helpful for us as writers of your recommendations for you to provide us a summary of all the schools that we're going to have to do a separate application. So remember that for any school that you're applying through CIDCAS, we do one recommendation, and that applies to all of those schools. So you don't necessarily need to list every single school, but I would note for us the one in CIDCAS that has the earliest deadline so that we can make sure that we accommodate your requirements. It can be helpful for us if you provide us a resume, depending on how well we know you and how well how much we've interacted with you, that can be really helpful so that we can highlight your skills and knowledge and attributes that will make you successful. If you've been in our lab and highly engaged and, go above and beyond, those are all great things for us to reference. And then if you want to print off your unofficial transcript from DegreeWorks, you can definitely do that as well. I would strongly encourage everyone to come to the open house if at all possible. Even those of you that are WVU students, we have had past participants from WVU say they really appreciated learning more about the graduate program, because even though you're here on campus, you're engaged at the undergraduate level and you're not necessarily aware of all of the opportunities that are available to you at WVU. So if you plan to attend, we would strongly encourage you to utilize the link that's on the master's home website for the academic programs. And if you scroll down, you can fill out the on-campus RSVP. If you forget to do this, please don't let that hinder your attendance. We would still love to have you come. And then if you're not able to make it in person, we are doing an online open house on November 1st. So some other dates that you might want to go ahead and put onto your calendar is, again, and I've already mentioned this once, but February 1st is the application deadline, so that you can submit your materials in SIDCAS to be considered in our master's program. Those will need to be verified, so I would strongly encourage you to get your materials in the 1st of January so that they can go through that process. February 22nd, we will be holding an open house in which all SLP students who are invited will complete an interview. So this is our opportunity to meet you and for you to meet us after you've been selected. So there's kind of a two-stage selection process with our program. The first is to be invited to the open house and participate in the interview process, and then shortly thereafter, you will receive notification if you've been accepted or put on the wait list or otherwise declined. You have until April 15th to make your decision as to where you would like to attend. We do ask that all students, once they've made a decision, if they can inform whatever schools they're not attending. It's just helpful so that they can go to the wait list and extend an offer to another student. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email Dr. Moore, and she will be able to answer your questions. Thank you.